What's going on, guys? Matthew back again, this time for another TV review of Severance Season 2, Episode 4. Let's get into it. Okay, so definitely not the episode that I expected for sure. We start with Irv waking up in the middle of a frozen lake outside of Lumen, and I assume it's behind the building where all the trees and mountains are. And it makes me wonder, how did they get out there, obviously? And their Audis must have already been there because he was standing up when he came back. So why would he be on the lake? Why would Mark be on the cliff? And obviously he meets Helly, who, like I was suspecting the first episode was Helena. They did trick me on this one, though, I'm not going to lie. I really thought this was Helly for most of the episode just because of how clueless she seemed to be about everything that was going on. And I didn't think that they would have Helena in that situation to where she was dressed like that and marching around the snow with all of them. But anyway, Irv wakes up and meets Helena, and immediately you can tell he doesn't trust her by the way he looks at her because of her comment about the night gardener. And I wonder why it wasn't until this episode that he really honed in on that, because we saw in, I think it was no, it would be episode 3, where she touched his hand and he was a little weirded out by that. But beyond that, we haven't seen anything for him to get really curious. It's not until this episode where he's really doubting that that's Helly. But he comes across Helly or Helena, meets up with Mark and Dylan, and then that's where they see the TV that's sitting on a cliff. And I have no idea how this TV's powered. I guess it's all remote or whatever. But Milicek is on the TV. He introduces us to Deeger Egan, which is Kier's brother, and apparently they went out into the woods at some point together, and we'll get into more of that later. And they are told to go to Scissor Cave, and from there they start looking for the cave, and that's when Dylan sees what I call a creepy Mark. Now, this is either a clone, a machine that was made, or they can only see these because they're being basically told to see it through the chip in their brain, right? So it's kind of like if you were to make a hologram or something that only they could see. It could be that situation. Or, like I said, they're clones or robots, but we'll have to find out later. And does Helena know everything that's going on? Does she know what these other beings are that are pointing them in the right direction? Or is she clueless about some things? I think that I think she knows everything that's going on. But there's other questions that have to be asked later on in the show between her and Mark. But moving on from here, I have a note that says we have no opening. This is the first episode, other than the first episodes of each season, this is the first episode to not have a unique opening with Mark seeing little versions of himself and his coffee and things like that. This is the first time that we've done that. And I wonder if it's because it's the first episode we've ever had completely outside of Lumen and outside of Mark's house, a completely new location. I wonder if that has something to do with it. So they walk, and we spend a lot of time with them walking and with the music playing in slow motion. I thought that was strange. I wonder if that'll have some point going forward. But then we see creepy Helly, and she might be the creepiest one because her head is always tilted like that, her arms over here like this, and she points them in the direction of the cave, Scissor Cave. They go into the cave, and clearly Helena knows what game they're playing, because when Mark and Irv are looking at the book, she looks at both of them to see how they're reacting to it. And so I still don't know what this game is supposed to do, if it's supposed to trigger some like long lost memory in Mark's head or something. I have no idea. Let's see. And from there, we have Irv reading the story of Dieter, which is this really random and hilarious story about Dieter masturbating in the woods and then dying because of it. I have no idea. I think that this is all a joke. Everything in these books is completely made up, and this is all like some kind of therapeutic test to see if he can remember his dead wife, even if they extract her memory from his head. It could be like some kind of test to see how strong love is or something. I'm not sure, but they keep walking until they see creepy Dylan. And Dylan looks very dark in the face, almost like his hair is going up from smoke or something. He points in a direction. They follow that direction. And this is when Irv is watching Helena and Mark talking. And he obviously still doesn't trust Helena. And there's a really cool transition that goes over the bark of a tree into the next scene. I just wanted to make note of that transition. I thought it was really cool. I just really noticed that. Um, and this is when Irv talks to Mark about Haley and how he doesn't trust her, which Mark is obviously um, being subjective because he has a big crush on Haley. And it's here, while Irv and Mark are talking, that they come across this really strange creature. It looks like a seal, but it has tusks on it. And I don't know what it's doing out there in the middle of the woods. And um, I have a note here. Even Helena looks surprised. The show made a point to show that Helena was even surprised by this creature, didn't understand what it was. So is Lumen manufacturing animals? Are they gene splicing animals together and creating new creatures? Why would it be out there in the middle of the woods? I have no idea. But it's when they show Helena, and she asks a question. She asks, "Why does it look so messed up?" And there's a bird or wasp behind her that lands on a tree branch and then flies away. I feel like there's something important regarding that wasp or bird, whatever it was, because it was CGI. It didn't need to be there in that shot. So I think there's something going on involving that bug or bird, whatever that was behind Helly. There's something going on with that. And let's see, Irv is especially upset, and he calls Dylan a dumbass. And you can see that Irv is really on his toes. He's really on edge. He knows that Helly is not Helly. He sees this creature. He even says that we should eat it at some point. I've heard speculation that maybe that's because his Audi is some kind of survivalist or something, but that was a really strange suggestion for Irv to suggest eating that seal. It looked like a seal with tusks. I can't remember if there were actually seals with tusks or if those would be called something else, but that's what it looked like. They keep walking. They get to a waterfall where they see all of their clones, for the lack of a better word. And I have a note again. Haley's clone has a tilted head like that. It's very creepy. Like I said before, hers is the creepiest. And from here, they meet Melichek, and then they go to where they have their tents set up. And Helena meets Irv inside Irv's tent, and she's made him like a snow seal. And all of this is to try to make herself look more like Helly. And I notice here that when she is Helena, she has a different smile. Everything about her face, this actress is doing such a good job, Brett Lauer, of playing the same character yet two different characters at the same time. Like I said, she's more condescending, and when she can tell that Irv knows it's not really Helly, she says his name, Irving, in a very condescending way. That tells you that it's not Helly, it's Helena. Helena has this weight about her to where she kind of like strides around like she's above everyone, because that's how she was raised. She was raised in a very privileged family, and what we'll find out is also she's very lonely. Yeah, so at the campfire, Milicek begins to read the story of Dieter and how he brutally died. His eye fell out, pus came out, and it hardened. And then Kier went to the sound of the waterfall to stop the sounds of his brother screaming and dying. So it's either the story of Cain and Abel and Kier killed his brother, or they came across some crazy creature and the creature killed his brother. And through this creature, Kier found some kind of new philosophy. And this is all related to what Lumen is doing today. That's the only thing I can think of. Also, Milicek mentions a creepy little woman that Kier met in the cave called a temper woe, and it's basically like a short little woman in a bridal gown. It looks like a zombie.
What the hell is even that?
I have no idea why they would make that up. I don't really understand the purpose of that, but we'll see more of that going further into this episode. And then he says that Dieter became Chaos's whore. And the whole time, Helena's laughing, and she starts laughing really hard. And I think it's because she knows it's bullshit, and she has so much power in this company that she doesn't really care if the project is successful. From what I can gather, she seems to be more concentrated on having some kind of relationship with Mark because she's so lonely. But she begins to laugh at the idea of this story of Kier. And Milacek even seems to be, because remember, at this point, Milacek knows that Helena is not Heli. They're both in this together. So why would Helena laugh at this and Milacek take it so seriously? I wonder if Milacek wants to laugh, but he has to keep it serious for the sake of the whatever therapeutic process they're going through or project. I'm not really sure what's going on there. And it's after this point that Irv begins to call out Helena again and says, who is the night gardener? Did he have a flashlight? He's calling her out on that bull crap that she gave all of them when she was referring to what she saw when she became her outie. It's at this point that Irv really should have just called her out on being an outie. He should have just said, this is not Heli. I don't think this is Heli. I think this is her outie. I think we're being played. But he decides to get real defensive. He thinks it's 3-on-1. He gets mad. He says, screw all of y'all, and he walks into the forest with his flame. It's at this point that Mark follows Helena into her tent. She's mad at how cruel, or she's upset with how cruel she was to Irv and thought it was unnecessary. And it's at this point that they continue to flirt, and they start to take their clothes off, and they have sex while Irv is walking through the forest and getting lost and tripping. And it's while they are lying there that Helena tells Mark that she didn't want to tell them who she was because she's ashamed of it. So Helena is actually ashamed of who she is. She doesn't like who she is. And I forgot to mention this earlier when she was being cruel to Irv at the campfire. She told him that, oh, don't worry, Irv's just mad because he's never going to see Bert again, and he's lonely. And when she told him that he was lonely, it made me think that she was talking about herself. That's how she feels. She's lonely, and she really just wants like a companion. But moving back to Irv in the forest, he passes out in the forest and has a nightmare. He wakes up to all the trees being dead, and he sees his cubicle. And he walks over, and I have another note here that there are wasps or butterflies or something near his computer. And I wonder if that's any kind of relation to that bird or bug that we saw behind Helena earlier when they saw that creature. He sits down at the desk. He sees Bert on the other side, makes him happy, and then immediately looks over to his left, and he sees the temper woe working on the computer. She looks at him, and she looks back at her work. He begins to see his computer screen move around, and I believe it forms the word Egan, or an eyeball or something. And then the temper woe scares him, and he wakes up. Back in Helena's tent, Mark and Helena have just gotten done having sex, and Mark sees his real-life wife in her face because of the reintegration that he had started at the end of last episode. Now, it's interesting because that's where we ended last episode. We start here in the forest. Between him getting that reintegration and them showing up in the forest, Irv being on that frozen lake, their outies must have gone out there, but we'll have to see that in the next episode. But from here, Irv wakes up, and also Helena really likes Mark. For a moment, I thought Helena was doing this to maybe satisfy herself and also to get back at Helly, but Helena seems to really like Mark, and I wonder if that's the that bit of Helly that's coming out in her. It's gonna be interesting to see how this all works with Helena and Helly. But Irv goes back, and Milicek has somehow lost Irv and Helena. Mark gets up, him and Dylan are there. Milicek comes running, and they don't know where they are until they start hearing Irv screaming. And Irv has found Helena staring at the waterfall. And there's something pleasant about that waterfall that Helena likes until Irv interrupts her, starts accusing her and of being an outie, and says that Helly would never be that cruel. And he says, well, if you're an outie, well, then who would have the permission for their outie to be on the severed floor other than an Egan? So he figures out who she is. He starts screaming, dragging her to the water, and starts to dunk her head in the water and threatening to kill her unless Milicek turns her back to Helly, which he does. So Helly goes straight from the end of last season at that party, letting everybody know about how miserable it is to be severed. She gets tackled, and from her perspective, she wakes up in water, being basically almost killed by Irv. So we haven't seen Helly all season until that moment. So I feel really bad for Helly. The last thing she remembers is kissing Mark, becoming her outie, and then from there she's waking up here, and Helena's already had sex with Mark, so Mark's already had sex with her, but Helly didn't get to experience it, so that's going to be a very interesting subject going forward. It's going to be tough for Helly. That's a real tough thing to get through there. And it's at this point that Irv is able to force Milicek to turn Helena back into Helly, and then Irv is forced to basically retire. They're going to delete every bit of evidence that he ever existed, and then the episode ends with Milicek turning off Irv. We cut the credits, and then the next episode, I'm sure we're going to go back in time to see how our outies got out there in the first place. And then it won't be until episode 6 that we actually get to explore Helly and what Helly's going through. And I'm not even sure how many episodes are in this season. I believe there were 9 or 10 last season. So we won't get too many episodes with Helly this year. Maybe 2 or 3, which is unfortunate. She's my favorite character, but what we're doing is very interesting here. I'm excited to see where we go with Mark, Helena, and Helly, and that interesting triangle there, even though it's involving 2 people. It even involves his real life wife, Gemma. So it's going to be very interesting to see where we go here. Guys, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe. If you agree with me or disagree with me on anything, let me know in the comments below. Like I said, just hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy.